Have you ever driven through New York State? It's huge, right? Home to about 19.5 million people, which makes it the fourth biggest state in the entire country. But as you're driving, you can't help but wonder, where is everybody? It's this wild paradox, a massive, super important state that feels, well, kind of empty once you leave one tiny little corner.
Okay, let's just put some numbers on this, because they are absolutely staggering. Get this. 62% of the entire state's population lives in the New York City metro area. And that area, it makes up just 4% of the state's land. That means almost two-thirds of the people are crammed into this tiny slice of land, leaving the other 96% of the state almost, well, empty. It is one of the most lopsided states in America.
So that's the big puzzle we're going to solve together in this explainer. How on earth did this happen? How did America's fourth largest state end up with one city becoming a global giant while the vast majority of its landmass just didn't? The answer is a really fascinating story about geography, power, and what you could call a series of massive missed opportunities. To solve this mystery, we've got to rewind the clock way back. Because long before New York was even a concept, there was a major power here that basically drew a line in the sand, creating what you could think of as a Great Wall in the north. And that power was the Iroquois Confederacy. Now let's be clear, we're not talking about a loose collection of tribes. This was a sophisticated, powerful alliance of 6 nations. They were a major political and military force that controlled a huge chunk of territory and really dictated the terms of engagement for anyone trying to move inland.
And the barrier they created wasn't just about military might. It was way deeper than that. It was cultural. You had European settlers showing up with their patriarchal societies, where everything, land, money, power, is passed down through the father. The Iroquois, on the other hand, had a matrilineal system. Power and lineage flowed through the mother's side. This wasn't just a small difference. It was a fundamental clash of worldviews that made expansion and integration incredibly slow.
So you really had this 1-2 punch that created the Great Wall. First, the human wall, the organized and powerful Iroquois Confederacy that for a very long time said, nope, this far and no further. And second, you had a natural wall, the brutal climate. We're talking incredibly harsh winters with insane amounts of lake effect snow. For early settlers, the mild coast around New York Harbor looked a whole lot more appealing.
All right, before we get to the next piece of this geographical puzzle, which is all about water, just a quick heads up. The information in this explainer is compiled from open sources. And hey, if you're enjoying this deep dive, please do not forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, share, and like this video. It really helps us out. Thank you. Okay, let's move on.
Now, even after those early barriers started to come down, New York's fate was sealed by its waterways. But here's the crazy part, the great paradox. You'd think rivers and canals would spread people and wealth out, right? Well, in New York, they did the exact opposite. They funneled everything into one place. And this leads us to a huge geographical mystery. Take a look at the St. Lawrence River. It's a massive waterway, connecting the Great Lakes directly to the Atlantic Ocean. By all logic, there should be a giant American city sitting on its banks, a Chicago, a New Orleans, but there isn't. Not a single one. Why? What happened?
Well, clue number 1 is all about politics. For a long time in American history, that river was the tense, sometimes hostile, border with British Canada. It just wasn't a safe bet. You wouldn't pour money and resources into building a major city on what was essentially a military frontier.
But the real knockout punch, the thing that truly sealed the St. Lawrence's fate, was competition. The river had a rival, a man-made upstart that completely rewrote the economic map of North America and basically stole all its potential.
And that rival was, of course, the Erie Canal. Finished in 1825, this thing was an absolute game changer. It was an engineering marvel with an audacious goal: carve a path from the Great Lakes all the way to the Atlantic, through New York City, completely bypassing the St. Lawrence.
Now, the promise of the canal was huge. The idea was to connect the resource-rich interior to the coast, supercharge trade, and, this is the key part, spark the growth of booming cities all along the canal route in upstate New York. We're talking Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse. They were all supposed to become major hubs.
But here is the great, tragic irony of the whole project. Yeah, the canal helped those upstate cities grow a bit. But its main effect? It was like a giant fire hose of wealth, goods, and people, pointed straight down the Hudson River, emptying directly into New York City.
And that brings us to the final, and honestly, the most powerful factor in this entire story, the simple, unstoppable gravitational pull of New York City itself.
From the very beginning, even back when it was New Amsterdam, the city had one killer advantage that nowhere else in the state could even touch: a perfect, deep-water, sheltered harbor. It was the natural gateway to a continent, and everything, trade, finance, and people, flowed through it.
And once that engine got going, its growth became, well, exponential. Just listen to this. Between 1890 and 1900, a single 10-year span, the city's population grew by over 120%. That's not just growth, that's a human tidal wave, pulling in millions of people from all over the world. Fast forward to today, and the result is just jaw-dropping. The New York City metro area, with over 19 million people, doesn't just dwarf the other cities in the state. It's bigger than all of them combined, several times over. Buffalo, Rochester, Albany, Syracuse, they're not even in the same league. It's not a fair fight. And that magnetic pull is just as strong as ever. It's the financial center of the world. It's a global hub for tech, media, you name it. It's still the #1 place for so many job seekers and immigrants. And so the cycle just keeps feeding itself.
So, when you put all these pieces together, you start to see it. New York's destiny was kind of divided right from the very beginning.
It really was a perfect storm, wasn't it? You had historical factors, with the Iroquois creating a buffer zone. You had geographical factors, like the harsh climate and the Erie Canal, which paradoxically funneled everything south. You had politics, with a tense border preventing a northern hub from ever taking off. And finally, you had economics, with New York City becoming this self-perpetuating magnet that just sucked all the air out of the room. But just when you think the story is over, something new is happening. For the first time in, well, forever, a new trend has appeared. New York City itself has actually started to lose people. And that leaves us with one final, fascinating question to think about. As people start searching for more affordable places to live, could this be the moment? After centuries of this lopsided growth, could New York's geographical destiny finally be about to change?